On the heels of the Danforth shooting and with another gun murder overnight here in the city, there's been a lot of concern about guns out on Toronto streets. Well, former Toronto Police Chief Blair is now the Minister of Border Security and Organized Crime Reduction. He stopped in at BT this morning to talk about how he plans to stop the flow of illegal guns across our borders.
Frankly, there's two very important sides to that. One is the interdiction of the supply, and we've invested a lot of money at the border through the Customs Border Security Agency and through the RCMP doing investigations to deal with those individuals who illegally smuggle guns into the country. We've also brought forward new legislation to make it, I think, a far more accountable system of firearm registration so that the police can conduct their investigations and to encourage responsible gun ownership. But we also have a lot of work to do in this city on reducing the demand for guns. It's one thing to reduce the supply, but you have to reduce the demand. And you do that by going into the communities where this gun violence is most prevalent, and you change some of the social determinants of crime and violence. You create opportunity and jobs and provide, quality services and, different choices for those young people that are currently getting involved in gangs to make better choices.
I'm going to move on to asylum seekers as well. There was a poll recently done saying that many Canadians believe that we're taking in too many asylum seekers and people who are irregularly crossing over the border. And we've had an increase just last month of people crossing over the border irregularly.
This is something that's being very aggressively managed right across the country. And what we've seen worldwide is the largest migration of refugees in the world since 1961. It's a very significant global phenomenon. If a person presents themselves at our border seeking asylum, they are entitled by Canadian law to due process. But we manage that very carefully, and that all people coming into this country are subject to rigorous security checks to make sure that there's no issue of criminality or risk to the security of the population. And we also have a responsibility for people seeking asylum to ensure that they're treated with humanity and dignity.
The province, though, has asked for $200 million in help. Is that something that's going to be provided?
And I will tell you, we've had discussions, and we've been working with the province and the City of Toronto. We've also, a very significant impact of this issue has affected Quebec and the City of Montreal. We've been working with the our provincial partners and municipalities. I was recently in Toronto just last week, providing funding to Toronto for some of the extraordinary costs that they've experienced, and also ensuring that we paid for temporary housing shelters so that the people who required it had that available to them.
The city has received $11 million from the federal government to help house the influx of asylum seekers here in the city. Just last week, hundreds of refugee claimants were moved out of college dorms here in Toronto and into hotels that are being paid for by Ottawa. Tammie Sutherland, City News.